Stand-up moment was probably the Queen's Jubilee concert at Buckingham Palace, specifically Brian May opening the show from the roof of Buckingham Palace, because that is just bonkers. Whoever came up with that idea is just a genius. But yeah, he's a hero of mine, and you know, doing that was just something quite, hairs on the back of your neck stand up on end.
I think what made the event memorable was the fact that it had never been done before. So that was really interesting from a kind of production challenge perspective, because we had such a big operation on the river and a big operation on land as well. But it also took a lot of convincing to get all the local authorities and London boroughs on board, because I think people were just scared because it hadn't been done before. And I also like the fact that it was slightly bonkers and eccentric to have 1,000 boats on the river.
Every single time the torch arrived on site, it's done 125 miles to get to us. We had to dovetail the end of the show, which is a 2-hour show with no rehearsal, with the seamless arrival of the torch. And Philip, the composer, had rescored Chariots of Fire to start with these 2 refrains from a hunting horn. So you're in a sea of 10,000, 20,000 people, and over the PA we would play this opening, which were these hunting horns, and it just, every single time it happened, it really engaged the audience. You could feel the audience change. You could feel the dynamic. They're thinking, something's happening, something's arriving. And every single time the torch came onto the site, there was a kind of emotional moment.
I remember going to my first production meeting, which was in a shipping container in Bristol, and they started telling me about how they were going to be having mini spiders on zip wires, and they'd be going along and collecting these zorbs from this huge spider that would be throwing flames out the top of it. And the zorbs had people in, and then they were going to lower the zorbs onto this platform and then raise the zorbs, revealing these people who would then have lightning flying out of them. And I was like, what?
After the World Cup kickoff concert in South Africa, you know, after we'd managed to pull it all off, despite a really difficult build and going from 10 days to 5 days, you know, we'd had to do proper 24-hour, you know, through the night builds to pull it all off. And we did it. We went live for 3 hours, you know, to a global audience all over the world, to 1 billion people. And the crew that I was working with, the guys from Soweto Township, I remember them saying to me, you know, obviously all of this has been amazing, but actually the thing that's meant the most to us is that this is the first time that we felt equal on an event site working together.
I think if we can all work together and pull in the same direction, we can change the world.
The whole of this industry, I think, memorable for me is the teamwork and the camaraderie, and the fact that you are one piece. You are just a tiny part of a whole team. You are not the most important person. In fact, without the rest of the team around you, you couldn't do your job.
A lot of people are paying out of their own pocket. They get a little bit of subsidy, but a lot of them are doing it at their own time, their own expense to do the carnival. And I think that's what has kept this carnival alive. Even the police needed a thank you, you know what I mean? Because we work hard, they work hard, everything went well, that was it. That was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful carnival. I mean, I've pulled in favours, proper big favours for the carnival. We do have our rough moments, we do have our good moments, but that's a family for you. My Disco Hustlers family.
The family feel, there was everyone there, from people's babies right up to grandparents. There were little kids riding around on these sort of modified crazy bikes. And I literally felt as if I'd run away with the circus.
The things that go on backstage that the general public are unaware of are like endless. Cast members dropping their radio mics down the toilet, that seems to happen constantly. Things catching on fire, like we're always having sound equipment catch fire. We've had mixing desks catch fire. We've had racks of equipment catch fire. And 9 times out of 10, the audience are completely unaware of it.
At Glastonbury on the Pyramid stage, Barry Gibb was guesting with Coldplay. And just in the changeover, his analogue monitor desk blew up. Bang, no sound for him. We didn't know what to do. One of the BBC guys goes, hold on a minute, I know where there's one of those. 2 minutes later, they came, brought one up on stage. They started taking pictures of the settings. Within 5 minutes, we had the whole thing changed over, back up and running. That was pretty hairy.
I think on the actual day, the weather was appalling, and we had to wait for the Port of London Authority to give us approval that all the boats could take part. There was a real risk that the 300 rowers wouldn't be able to take part. Getting that sign off on the morning of the event was a really big moment for us.
When we were firing the opening ceremony of the Olympics, the first cue was a manual cue where you hit fire and the sequence off the stadium roof erupted. And then the next moment was a solid cue, which we would receive time code to start and generate that cue. So I had to unplug the XLR cable from the solid state into the panel, and as I did that, I pushed it straight through the panel and broke the panel. So literally with 6 minutes to go, with God knows how many billions of people watching, I was standing there with a panel trying to unplug the XLR and plug on another one. That didn't work, so we had to unplug all of the data cables and swap to the backup, and it was absolute manic, and I've never been so frightened in all my life. But the evidence is that nobody noticed. But I can tell you, in that control room for 5 minutes, it was pure hell.
I travelled to Mumbai to set up a standalone Live Earth India concert, and we were on site building for a few days, and we went back to our hotel that night, and we essentially got caught in the Mumbai terrorist attacks. We were holed up all night under attack, and we were evacuated out, next day back to the UK. A life-changing moment, really.
The biggest challenge for us is the fact we can't rehearse. We can test the continuity of the circuits, but until you actually push the button and fire the show, we don't know whether or not it's going to work at all. And the London Eye is one of the key examples where we can't rig that until 6 o'clock in the evening on the actual 31st of December. So we have 4.5 hours to rig that, and about an hour and a half before the show, when we connect the umbilicals and all the final connections, I don't know whether we're going to get some of the show, all of the show, or none of the show.
We were using technology techniques that, such as depolarized light technology on LCDs and transparent LCD. We were using specialist video mapping in three-dimensional spaces, but in an inverted sense, so that the projection was on the outside rather than on the inside, where the audience was. We really did take laboratories around the world and do R&D work to get the best out of some developing technologies of the time. With genuinely true innovation, I am actively watching and discussing concepts that involve the evolution of robotics, NFC technology, RFID, body scanning, eye and full body tracking, gamification of retail is going to be a really big one, motion capture, artificial intelligence, machine learning. There's some fantastic developments in real-time fluid materials rendering, augmented reality, transparent and flexible OLED, and drones. And it's an incredibly exciting time. And they're all very real, tangible world elements that will engage the audiences or allow the audiences to be engaged in a digital way in real world environments.
Gunpowder has been around for centuries, and then with the advent of metal salts, we've brought in colour. More recently, we've got more esoteric colours, so deviation from the solid normal reds and greens. You've now got lilacs and aqua blues, etc. And the way we fire the shows has transformed what we do now. We couldn't do what we do off the London Eye now without that computer control.
Over the last year, the world has changed. I never thought that I would be calling a show from my living room with multiple laptops around me and having to learn a whole new language.
So I think the technology that's excited me most in recent years is this new generation of immersive sound systems, immersive sound design. I mean, I was quite uncertain about this as a technology when it first came along, and we've been playing with it in theatre, and it's really fascinating. I mean, the ability to get sound to come, really truly come from actors on stage, but not just for a small amount of the audience, but for a huge cross-section of the audience.
For show callers, there really isn't any technology that is there for us. We still use the hundreds of years old method of pencil and paper and a show book, because nothing else works as well as that. If we could have some really good technology to help show callers, that would be amazing.
We started walking down the backstage corridor, which was filled with all of these artists you can imagine, just every artist packed in there. And we just had this moment where people would turn around to see who it was. They'd see me and they'd be like, oh, it's just, like a nobody. But then they'd do a double take and realise it was Desmond Tutu. And then their face would erupt in this huge smile. And so it was this sort of wave of smiles that opened up all the way down this corridor of people.
My wife has a tendency for managing to phone me at the most inopportune moments, and I can remember one time hanging off the London Eye. It was a bit like the final credits of Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, when he's leaning over the bridge trying to get the weapon, and he's got his phone in his mouth and holding on, and my phone always goes at that sort of moment, and it's always my wife.
The leading lady comes running off stage, and the head of sound shouting down the radio, blow a mic out, it's got water in it. Leading lady comes running off stage. She's off stage for about 5 seconds. And backstage sound person grabs the can of air duster, squirts the microphone, shoves it back out on stage. She goes running back out to do her main number. The only problem was that instead of grabbing a can of air duster, she'd grabbed a can of black matte spray paint. So not only did she not fix the microphone, she sprayed a huge splodge of black paint all over the leading lady's forehead, her wig, like one eye. And she goes back out there and tries to deliver a song with a microphone that's not working and black paint just all over her face. I won't tell you who the engineer was, but it was Little Mermaid on Broadway. And it was the Little Mermaid who went back out on stage with black paint all over her face.
The Tour de France Grand Départ, one of the cyclists who came over to me and said, where do I change? Language problems for days. And he said, here? At which point he unzipped his tracksuit to reveal a bare chest. The trousers came down to reveal a bare everything. And at which point it kind of triggered off a whole domino effect. The best part of 120 cyclists. And they were like, oh, we do it here. And a whole lot of them took off their tracksuits. They should have been underdressed. A lot of them weren't.
Can't tell you that. Can't tell you that. No, can't tell you that. Really can't tell you that one. No, can't tell you that one either.
I wasn't very academic at school, but I really liked being involved with the technical side of theatre and the shows at school. My careers, I went to the careers advice, said, can you tell me how I can have a career in the entertainment industry? And I was told by the careers advisor there wasn't any careers in the entertainment industry. I often think about that now when I'm standing on the pyramid stage at Glastonbury. I think, I wonder if, if it'd be quite nice to see my careers advisor now and say, here I am.